Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Boom, we are back with another episode of Find Your Freedom. And we have a fantastic guest, which we call all of our guests who comes to our platform, our friends, and can't wait for it. However, before we jump into the show, this show is being sponsored by Wealth Builders Mortgage Group. All right. They are fantastic. Omid, myself, we use them all the time. They lend us tons and tons and tons of money so we can go out and buy investment properties. You can use them for investment properties. You can use them for your own personal property. So once again, get in contact with them, Wealth Builders Mortgage Group, in for your long-term rentals, short-term rentals, whatever you need. So with that being said, let's jump into our guest, because this is going to be an exciting episode. And I met this guy. I didn't even meet him in person, right? What happened is, he was with someone else, a mutual friend. I get a text. And his lady, she called me Ted Lasso. She said, "Ted, oh my God, I know this guy. Y'all got to connect. He lives a couple hours from you." So she put us on a text string. We connected. And I was like, "Dude, you 100% have to be on our platform." He was like, "Whenever you need me, let's do it." So let me just give you a little background on him. Then we're going to kick it. So Ray, he's a financial literacy school teacher living in Brooklyn, New York. All right. We got Brooklyn in the house, right? He's also a wealth real estate coach, a real estate investor, and his ultimate aim is to inspire others to break free from that rat race and generate income through asset ownership and passive income streams. So Ray, primary example you can build is wealth regardless of your career choice of path there. He also firmly believes in living a life of abundance. Yes, we do. And where wealth and knowledge are shared. So let's welcome my boy Ray to the platform. What's up, Ray?
Hey, thanks for having me. Really excited to just share.
Cool. Ray, I know we're going to rock it today. So before we get into it, could you just give the audience a little bit on your background?
Sure. So first and foremost, I am an educator. I'm a school teacher. I have the pleasure of teaching middle school kids in a public school in Brooklyn, New York, about financial literacy, investing, entrepreneurship. In addition to that, what I realized was that I had a lot of parents that were telling me, "Wow, I can't believe you teach this in school and in public school. Can I sit in your class? Can I learn from you?" So I decided to launch contact on social media. I started my own brand, RT Invest, where I coach clients to build wealth, students, adults, all different ages. In addition to that, I'm also a real estate coach at Zen Coach University, where I'm helping people build that passive income through real estate assets. And I'm also a real estate investor myself.
Wow. I mean, okay, so this is not like a common story, and kind of to your point, my initial reaction is school teacher teaching this kind of content. What? How does this happen? And then how do you break start networking into kind of even the university, and being able to create content on your own. So I guess what inspired the journey, and how'd you get involved in it?
So I'm going to go back to my humble beginnings.
I love it.
I was born, raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a first generation American. So my parents were born in Vietnam, and they immigrated here in the 1980s. Typical immigrant story. No money, no education, barely any English. And they just worked really, really hard to provide for us, for my sister and I. So my whole life growing up, I thought I'd be in finance. I thought I'd walk around in a big fancy suit, giant office in the middle of New York City. That was my dream. I remember when I was young, we used to get the New York Times newspaper delivered to our door, back when they actually people used to, order delivery for newspapers. And we would go straight to the finance section and just go look at our stocks. And I didn't know much about it, but I knew that when my dad's stocks went up, he was happy. When they went down, he was mad. That's pretty much the extent. So I went to school in upstate New York. I majored in financial economics, and I got that dream job. I was hired into finance at Ernst & Young, Big Four accounting firm in the middle of Times Square. And I thought I was set for life.
Mm.
Little did I know, within the first year, I realized it wasn't for me. I was doing work that I feel like wasn't really impacting lives, really making a difference. And I was working past midnight, working weekends, and I just wanted to change, but I didn't know what. New Year's Eve 2010, I ran into a college friend. He was a teacher. He was happy. He made enough money to buy a place in Manhattan, which is no small feat. And most importantly, he was happy. I decided I want to be happy. So let me make the switch. And to be completely transparent, I always enjoyed teaching. Like I tutored kids when I was in high school, but I didn't think teachers made enough money. I remember looking at the way my teachers dressed, looking at what cars they drove. It's like, they don't make money. Like I can't support myself, my family like this. So I never considered it. So I made that leap. I quit my job, left corporate, went to grad school, become a teacher. And less than a month after, my mom and dad asked my sister and I to come to the living room. We sat down and they shared the news that my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and was given 6 months to live. In that moment, I didn't know how to react. I saw my father as the ultimate role model. He worked day and night, whatever it took to provide for his kids. He never smoked a day in his life. Like, how could he have lung cancer? It didn't make any sense to me. So I also questioned everything I learned growing up. We were told, hey, Raymond, do well in school, get good grades, go to good college, graduate, get married, have kids, buy a house, have a 30-year mortgage, and retire in your 60s. My dad never got there. He never had that opportunity. So I went down a rabbit hole, started reading books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Bigger Pockets, listen to podcasts, just learning about how people were to become financially independent and quit their jobs and retire based off real estate and the stock market. So naturally, I went to stock market first, and I invested a lot of my money in there. And then I got into real estate. I was able to purchase 2 primary homes in Brooklyn, and I was listening to more podcasts. Like, people are retiring off this out-of-state real estate. You could buy houses for 5 figures even. So my first purchase out of state, I purchased a turnkey property in Ohio for $106,000. A 3-bed, 1-bath house for $106,000. In New York City, you can't get anything for $106,000. You're lucky if you get it for $1 million, and you got to put a couple $100,000 of rental in the city.
You're lucky to get a hot dog for $106,000.
Yeah. Hot dog, no ketchup, no onions either, right? So that opened my eyes, and I decided to go all in real estate. And I was able to purchase several properties. I got into apartment complexes, general partner, limited partner, equity partner in a marina in New York City where we built houseboats to rent out. And at this point, like, as I was going on my journey, a lot of people asked me questions like, how are you doing this? Because I shared a lot with people. And, I saw so many coworkers, teacher friends that were struggling just to make ends meet, paycheck to paycheck. And here I was, like, actually building real wealth. So I started working with them, and they were like, you should run a course, you should coach, you should do all this. And it's really just an extension of my classroom, I feel, and just me sharing my personal journey and what's worked and what's not worked for me. And I think the biggest feedback I get is how transparent I am about everything I did wrong. Because it's easy for any guru to say, oh, you can make X amount of money, I did this, you could do it too. But they don't share their losses. They don't share what they did wrong. And, to show that not everything, everything isn't easy. There's going to be ups and downs. So I just want to be able to be fully transparent and share my journey and everything I've learned and more.
Wow. And it was a lot to cover there. First and foremost, sorry to hear about your father. And how long has it been?
13 years.
13 years now. Wow. Okay. And so we're hearing that obviously you went into this financial world thinking you're going to be, big suit, right? In the financial department, and said, oh my God, these guys are not for me. So you went back to school to get your graduate degree so you can teach. So when you start teaching, did you already have your properties in place, or was that something you was working on the side, doing? So can you just share kind of that experience on, say, hey, I'm about to become a teacher, and where you were?
Absolutely. So I quit my job in 2010. I started teaching full time in 2012. So when I first started teaching, I was teaching core math, regular math classes. And in New York City, there are specialized high schools that students try to get into. And it was literally just a test. If you test high enough, you get into these schools. If you can't, you won't be able to. So I went to my principal. I was like, our students are not getting to these schools, and I feel like it's because they're not prepared. And what I mean by that is, even our top honor students are at an 8th grade level in math. To be able to compete with other people taking this test, you have to get to a 9th and 10th grade level math. So what happened was she said that, let's teach an advanced math course. So that's what we started. And then I went into teaching more financial literacy. And as I was doing this, I purchased my first primary home in 2014.
Okay.
And then I purchased my second primary home in 2021.
Mm.
And my first out of state was 2022.
Okay.
So I didn't really get into real estate investing. Like, I don't think primary residence are investment. So I didn't get into investments until 2022.
Okay, so I think what's really cool about your story is, so you're just kind of learning as you kind of go along. So there's like, the financial market and then real estate. And so usually it's either, you have people in the financial market or in the real estate space, and you're kind of like covering in both. So for like just like the average person who just doesn't have a financial background, where should they start? Like, because there's like so many options, and everybody says they can make money here and there and kind of build wealth. Like, what's like a great first step?
So the first step in terms of finances is to track your expenses. Know how much you're spending, where you're spending it, know how much you're making, and seeing what your net is. If most people don't track their expenses because they're afraid of knowing. Because then when you actually put it down on a spreadsheet or a pen and paper, that's like the truth. So I've been tracking my expenses on Microsoft Excel since 2011, and just to know what I'm spending money on. So if I were to buy a bottle of water for $1, I would put it in my notes on my phone. Every couple of days, I punch in all the expenses, and I just be able to see it. And that's really the first step, to know what your gap is between your income and expenses. Next thing, always look at wanting to set yourself up for retirement. Now, many people don't want to put money into their retirement accounts because they want more money now to spend, which I understand. But the reality is, the more money you put into retirement, the closer you get to retirement, the closer you get to that number that you need in order to be work optional, not having to work. And I always say, tried and true S&P 500, invest in index funds. People say, oh, I want to buy this stock, this company. Sure, you could do that. But if you were to invest in hundreds of companies, it's more diversified. You're able to, over the last 50, 60 years, you get average 8 to 10% every single year. Now, some years up, some years are down, but historical data backs that up. Even through all the recessions and all the 2008 COVID, it's recovered and then some. So that's a way to passively grow your wealth, and also certain accounts will give you tax benefits as well.
Interesting.
So, could I have a follow-up question to that real quickly?
Absolutely.
So you say track expenses, and so I'm gonna kind of like break it down like simplest form. Is there like an app? So like, let's say you have Excel. What does that look like? Is there an app that you can use that's like that integrates into like your credit card, or is it just like manual entries? Like, what does that look like?
So there are apps out there. A popular app was Mint for a very long time, which they no longer have that. But a lot of people use Monarch Money as an app that people use. I personally just use my spreadsheets that I created that I also share on my website to my clients, like for free, or anyone that reaches out. Just like a simple template. You know, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't need to have, you know, all these colors, and it's just really just to know like the categories where your money is going.
Well, I think that's big, right? I mean, you know, it's a scary thing, you know. However, you know, we all think about it and we say, hey, how much coming in versus how much going out, and that's going to tell the story on, you know, what you need to cut back. So listeners out there, if you're not tracking what's coming in and what's going out, start there, right? Real simple, just like Ray, you know, mentioned. So Ray, let's carry on to school, right? So obviously you entered the school teaching math, right? And at this point you're teaching much more than math, correct? So I guess, how did you go from being a math teacher to teaching financial literacy in the school districts where it's not being taught at all?
Yeah. So when I shifted from teaching core math to more advanced math, I was put under the talent department. So in my school, each student chooses a talent, whether that be dance, vocal, engineering, athletics, math, science. They choose a talent that they see that they have about 4 periods a week. So the beautiful thing about being a talent teacher is that we don't really have to teach to a test, like a state test or a citywide test. We teach what, in most part, what we feel the kids need and want. So I actually was just teaching advanced math until my principal came to me about this program called Virtual Enterprise. Now, to be fully transparent, when I heard about it, I didn't want to do it because I was very comfortable doing what I was doing. I was used to it. I have a curriculum set. And I love to say, to get comfortable being uncomfortable, that's where most of the growth happens. Now, the program Virtual Enterprise is a 2-year program that starts in 7th grade and leads on to 8th grade. Now, it's a worldwide program where kids learn how to become entrepreneurs. So they literally learn, there's 5 departments: graphic design, marketing, human resources, administration, accounting, and finance. They learn all the tools for those 5 departments in 7th grade. And in 8th grade, they actually launched their own virtual company. So they do resumes, they do cover letters, they do interviews. I had them interview with colleagues in the school, administration in the school, and they get put into positions in the 5 departments in addition to CEO, CFO, CAO. So it's really a great opportunity to see the kids grow. And I always encourage teachers to come do these interviews, because to see them in a science or English class versus seeing them in a class like this, you can see a totally different side of them that you never knew existed. So they're able to, they're literally doing payroll. They apply for loans, business loans. They do payroll every 2 weeks. They create websites. They do business pitch competitions. And you know, it's really beautiful to see like how they grow before your eyes.
I think that's super cool. I mean, adults don't have these skill sets, and people go out of, go to great schools and they don't have that kind of skill set. And, some people just stumble upon it. Some people have maybe resources from other family members. So let's say I'm a new student and I'm asking you, hey, what's some content or books that I can read? Like, what's your typical recommendation as far as kind of like a starter kit for these sort of like programs that they've been running?
So in the 3 years of my program, we read a couple books. We read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and The Simple Path to Wealth. Those are 2 books that we read. I've had students that I taught over the years that I did different programs with. And I remember this past year, I had a couple students that are in high school or college that came back. Hey, Mr. Tran, I love what you're doing. I want to do this. I want to make money. Like, what can I do? So I give them a copy of the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I say, I'll give you a week. If you can read it in a week, come back to me and we'll talk. And what I've realized is that you really have to commit yourself. Like, I'm not going to spend my time to teach you or mentor you if you're not going to commit something to me. So if you're able to read a couple hundred pages and recite and give me feedback about the book to show that you actually went through it, okay, I'll give you my time. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And I think that was one of the first books I read to change my mindset on assets versus liabilities, on building wealth, on how the W-2 job, while it's safe, it's not always the best way to build wealth. So I feel like that was a really good starter for a lot of students, even
That's
adults.
good.
Teachers, my principal.
I actually like to tell people that, the W-2 job can be the driver to your wealth. And what I mean by that is it's a constant paycheck, right? It's a consistent paycheck where you know what's coming in and you can use that money to start to generate your wealth, and I always let people know, I say, hey, nothing wrong with a W-2 as long as you understand why you're using it and why you're there. Because these days, like when you're on social media, a lot of people are, oh, quit your job, go get this LLC. And after that, go get these business credit cards and open up these, and it's like, okay, that's a strategy. But look, there's nothing wrong with having a job and then taking that money and utilizing it to, generate something special, for yourself. So let me ask you, Ray, and switching hats just a little bit here. So, getting back into like the real estate thing, obviously, you wasn't born with money, correct? To our understanding, right? So, like, what did you do to actually generate, money so you can actually purchase? Now, I know one of the things you said earlier was, hey, becoming a school teacher wasn't the most fanciest thing, right? You saw cars that they drove, clothes that they wear, so obviously their bank account probably matched their look, right? So how did you, teacher, right, bought a primary home in New York, we might add, right, and then went on ahead and purchased some real estate?
Great question. Get that a lot. So first off, I did a lot of active income. So when I quit my corporate job to become a teacher, I knew I had to make up my salary. And I wasn't really worried about that because growing up, I've always found ways to like hustle and just make money however I can. Flipping sneakers, flipping iPhones, Nintendo Wii's, like you name it, I've probably done it. And so when I first became a teacher, I was a basketball coach to get more hours in, get per session. I did private tutoring for SAT, Regents, all different levels of math. And, to be honest, I was working 7 days a week. Monday through Thursdays, probably working until 8, 9 o'clock. And I was just grinding because I knew I needed active income. And then I realized that active income can fuel my passive income. So in terms of real estate, after I had a primary residence, I learned about what a HELOC is, home equity line of credit. Now, that's a way for you to leverage the equity that you own in your property and be able to use it for other asset classes. So I heard about flipping. I was like, that sounds like a good idea, but I don't know how to do it. I have the money. I don't have the money in my bank account, but I have money in my line of credit. How can I leverage this to start flips? So I networked, asked some friends that were in it, and I got connected with an investor. And he was like, we could do JV deals, joint ventures, where I'll fund the majority of the project. They'll put in what you call the sweat equity, and we'll split the proceeds after the sale. Okay. So I did that with 2 properties, and I didn't use any of my own money. So they call OPM, other people's money. I leveraged the bank's money to pay about 4% interest at the time. And we were able to make about 10%. Now, I borrowed 4 to make 10. So simple math, I made 6% without using my own money. So I was able to take that. That was about 20, 30,000 that I made my share. And I used that for the down payment and the closing costs for my first property in Ohio for 106,000. So to me, it was kind of just free rolling that into my first property.
Nice.
I love that. I think it sounds like you're very resourceful. And kind of going back to kind of what we were talking about before, as far as when somebody asks for your help, I like that filter of, let's see if you're willing to put in the work, because I think it's so common where people are so interested, they're excited, but then they don't want to put in the work. So I think that's a great filter to kind of see, and also it respects your time. Now, as far as like learning, let's say I'm a student. Now I have my job, and so where should I network? I mean, there's so many groups, there's so many, everybody, I think it's like content overload, like online.
Mhm.
So how do you like decide like who's telling the truth, and like what works, and how do I which like niche that should I do? So it seems like you've done a lot of like, you've spent your time in a lot of different niches. Like, where do I begin?
So the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't know about Gen Z doing this, but Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups for anything and everything. Parent Facebook groups, real estate, business, anything, you name it, they have it.
Yep.
And obviously there's a lot of people that aren't going to be as helpful, but just to like kind of search around. And there are mentorship programs, there's coaching programs that you can consider. Now, back to what you said about how I don't help students unless they give me something first. I actually believe I'd rather pay for a program or a mentorship, because if you commit $0 to something, you're likely not going to take it as seriously or do it. Now, when you put your money where your mouth is and you actually pay for something, then you're like, I need to get my money's worth. I need to really be able to, I pay for this, so I got to make sure I do everything that I can, use the resources, if it's for 1 year, 3 months, whatever it is. So obviously, some programs are better than others. Some coaches, some mentors are better than others.
Yeah.
But, a lot of them have money back guarantees, and just really have a conversation with them. I feel like within the first couple minutes, you'll learn a lot about a person, whether you guys vibe, whether you have the same values, the same mindset, and you can kind of make a decision based off of that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
no, I think, yeah, no, I think that's super helpful. And I think to your point, like everybody has there's a tribe out there for everybody, right? So it just like, you'll know if this is like a fit for you or not based on like the field that you have, or the person, the community, whoever you're looking into.
Absolutely.
So,
go ahead.
oh yeah. So kind of continuing with that. So, okay. So let's say I've kind of passed the filter. I read the book. What do I do now?
So I ask how active they want to be as an investor. Do they want to be active? Do they want to be passive? If you're looking to be a passive investor, so I actually believe that not everyone will agree with, but I think investing in index funds, the stock market, I would do that. I would max out my retirement accounts. I would make sure I have my emergency savings 3 to 6 months before I actually dive into real estate. Now, a lot of people would disagree with me, of course, but the path that I took actually really helped me with real estate. And what I mean is, so I learned about HELOCs, home equity line of credits. You're leveraging your property. There's also what's called a security-backed line of credit, SB lock, where you can leverage your taxable brokerage account. Now, it's the same concept. If you have, let's say, $500,000 in your taxable brokerage account, Schwab is a company I use. They gave me 70% loan to credit for that. So I can leverage $350,000 to do whatever I want with it. And then the $350,000 will stay invested into the market. So being able to invest in the stock market and invest in other asset classes like real estate really helped me push forward. You talk about leveraging. I feel like a lot of people don't understand the power of leverage. You could even leverage your retirement accounts. So for me, I always tell my clients to let's work on, making sure you're maximizing your retirement accounts, maximizing your emergency savings before we get into more risky asset classes like real estate.
Okay. I think that's a good look. But I wanted to go back and actually no, I'm gonna stay here for a second. So I don't think there's no right or wrong, to anything that you do. I think that it's create a plan, be disciplined with your plan, and see that your plan come through. Because regardless if you save, emergency fund and max your retirement plans out, then that can work, right? And then some people sit there and they withdraw all their money out of their 401k and jump into the into the real estate game, and it works, because the discipline. But the one thing I really want to point out is a lot of people always see the ending result, right? I listen to you a lot, Ray, and you mentioned, hey, you're a teacher at this point because you want to be, but you're financially set. If this teacher job goes tomorrow, like nothing's going to change in your life, right? But a lot of people don't know what got you here. The things you mentioned earlier, the just hustling, right? That side hustle of making money. And that's the part I really want to stress to everyone, is that you really don't need a ton of money, but you do need some hustle. Right. And you should, if you can, find another avenue to bring in some income. So you can sit here and use that income, right, with leveraging, others, if need be. So I really wanted to make sure we made that point, because a lot of people, all issue is, I don't have the money, right? And it's like, hey, man, there's ways out there. So I really wanted to hammer on that. But continuing on, this path, and with some of your students, right? Real quick, what grades are you teaching?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Oh, 6th, 7th, 8th. Okay, so middle school. So, and how long have you been doing it for now?
It's going on 13 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, have you had any students that was in 6th, 7th, and 8th that went on ahead and maybe reached back to you, after they graduated from high school, and, maybe doing some fantastic things? Can you share a story or two?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to post content was to have a public profile where kids that I used to teach that are now adults can find me. And I've had a lot of them reach out to me for advice. I've had, I remember a student, she is middle college right now, and she was like, I'm doing accounting right now because I was the CFO in the virtual enterprise company. And that was kind of like an internship for her to kind of feel whether she liked what they were doing. And then she was able to, choose that as a career. I've had former students that interned for me for my own personal company. And to me, that was the ultimate compliment, because they like me and willing to sit and deal with me longer after I finish teaching them, and to basically work for me for free for a set amount of time. So that meant that, I'm doing something right. I'm reaching the students somehow. And most importantly, I've had students that are parents now, and they're like, I'm also a new parent. I have a almost 9-month baby boy, and they're like, hey, Mr. Tran, like, what do you do for your kids? Like, how do you set up, them to be wealthy? So that's really like a full circle moment, because a lot of them became parents before me, and just to be able to, just like the personal touch, like I'm going to impact my former students' children's lives. It was like a wow moment for me.
That's awesome.
That's super powerful. I think when I think about kind of like what you shared earlier, and so you asked a question about like passive or active, and I think that's super important, because I think there's even a lot of investors, and they think they want to be active until they're active, and they're like, I don't want to be active. And that's me, by the way. Like I'm like, how can I be as passive as possible now, right? Like, so it's like I've almost gone through this cycle of, okay, trying to figure out where I should kind of revisit my strategy, and to what point. And the ultimate goal for me has been like, okay, like the time freedom, because I think sometimes, like being in short-term rentals, it's so active that you're on all day, every day. Like there's no time off. So what is like the vetting system that you use, or the questions you ask for somebody to maybe have a better understanding, as far as wanting to do the passive thing or to do the active thing, and to determine the right fit?
So when it comes to specifically real estate investing, there's 3 types of capital. There's time, money, and knowledge. So most people have 1 or 2 to 3, and they're looking for the third. So that's a way to figure out what type of investor you want to be. So for me, I had time and capital, but I didn't have the knowledge. And I was willing to put in as much time and capital to learn that and figure out what I wanted to do. Now, if we're talking about short-term rental, mid-term rental, long-term, I asked them, do you want to get a call in the middle of the night saying that someone's toilet is clogged? Do you want to get an email? First thing you read in the morning is that there's raccoons up in the attic from your tenant. If you don't want to do that, then you probably want to pay a property manager. Now, the property manager will relay the information to you, but having someone that you can rely on, that you're paying a portion of your proceeds to take care for you versus you having to do it for yourself is very big. And I like to say that for me, I didn't mind going out of state because I am probably the least handy person in the world. And if someone were to call me for a property next door that needs to be fixed, I would still call someone to fix it. So it doesn't matter if I'm next door or thousands of miles away. So that was a way for me to figure out like where I would go with that.
Interesting. And, being passive, like the funny thing about it is, anything that you do, right, is really nothing's passive. Right? Like it's
levels
how,
of passive.
Right. Like what's like the only thing that's really passive is when you just give somebody your money. Like I think stocks, right, to a certain point is passive. Being an investor, right, giving capital, that's pretty passive. But everything else that get done, it just so happens that you got to spend some kind of time doing something, right? That's speaking to your management team, or getting those raccoons out of your your attic. So and that's real estate. But for me, man, I'm gonna tell you something. I think that this passive thing is something, because I tell people I'd rather be working for myself on my own items than working for someone else on their own items. You know what I mean? So, because sometimes, a lot of people say, oh, you're creating another job by creating a business. And I think that's totally fine. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree.
But I guess staying here when it comes to, these passive investments currently right now with your portfolio, what line do you stand on? Are you totally passive, or are you mixed, or are you leverage one way or the other?
So I would say I probably have about $4,000 a month in passive income. Now, for me, I love my job as a teacher, so I don't plan on quitting. And to be fully transparent, my wife and I I could probably stop working as a teacher and still have a very stable financial life. Now, with a baby, and my wife is not working right now, we are a single income household. Now that brings a little more tightness in our finances. Now we're still able to swing it. The most important thing to me is that I plan on keeping my W-2 job as a teacher because I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
These conversations I'm having with you, I have my students every single day. Now, it may be a little dumbed down, but a lot of them can handle it. I'm actually, one of my goals this year is to teach my students how to analyze deals so I could do less due diligence myself, have them analyze these deals for me, tell me if it's a good deal or not, what to offer. And, it's really understanding that you have the freedom to not work is really the ultimate dream for me. And when people talk about freedom, a lot of people think about making X amount of money. For me, freedom is the ability to wake up whenever you want, do what you want in the morning, and choose to work when and if you want. And that's really the ultimate freedom, to be able to spend time with your family,
Choice.
or whether to make your own schedule. You know, like when you're working a job, you're doing it to make your bosses rich, your owners rich. When you own your own business, you work for yourself, you're working to build wealth for yourself. So I think that's the difference in the joys of being a W-2 worker versus having your own business as well.
I like that because you kind of have the best of all worlds. So you get to kind of pick and choose when. And, I know people sometimes talk about like FU money, like, oh, I can do what I want and I have the FU money. But, I think ultimately it's just like the freedom of choice and being able to kind of decide, hey, like, at this stage, this is where I'm going to put my time and this is what I'm going to do. But yeah, I think that's great. I think it's like, it's you're an educator in so many different ways, but you also, I think like your legacy will be like, it's almost like the butterfly effect. Like you won't, it's going to continue going and you don't even know that you have this sort of effect on so many people. Like you talked about the multiple generations through education. So one other question, like educational resources. So where do I learn about real estate? Where do I learn about like stock market? What are like some great resources if I'm just trying to get started, just to kind of get my feet wet, or kind of dial down like a particular niche that I want to kind of specialize in?
Absolutely. So for the stock market, stockmarketgame.org, which is sponsored by the SIPA Foundation. And that's a game that I've played with my students for at least 6 years. And basically you get $100,000 in virtual money to invest in the stock market, to buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And at the end of the year, there's prizes for the top 3 winners. And the beauty of it is that, working with the SIFMA Foundation that sponsored the stock market game, we built such a great relationship that they've actually invited us to last year to the New York Stock Exchange closing bell ceremony.
That's great.
So I was able to, so it was myself, my principal, and 6 kids that went. And then there were 2 kids that we chose to be up there ringing the bell. And
so cool.
I never thought I'd ever be down there myself as an adult, but to be able to bring my students there, for them to have those pictures and be on the trading floor where all the chaos happens, and to be up there on stage to ring the bell was amazing. And, in addition to that relationship with the SIPA Foundation transpired even more, where a couple months ago, we were actually featured on Fox Business News. They came to our school and they did live segments.
That's great.
Just to learn how the kids trade stocks. Because to have, like, imagine having your children say, hey, I was in school today and I was learning how to buy stocks. The iPhone's coming out. Dad, I think you should buy Apple stock because if it does well, it's going to go up. And those types of conversations that, especially in my school, we have a lot of immigrants in our population. And being first generation Americans, a lot of parents just know how to work hard, but they don't know how to work smart. They don't know that leaving your money underneath your bed in a piggy bank or in a regular bank is not going to build wealth. Technically, you're losing money to inflation. So worst case scenario, put your money in a high yield savings account. And I literally had a student that just graduated. He's going to high school. He was like, Mr. Tran, so if my parents put the money in high yield savings, they could still access it. I was like, yes, they could still access it. They'll get about 5% depending on which bank you use. They'll have to transfer from the high yield savings to your regular bank to take out the money, but they're getting 500 times the amount of money that they're getting interest. And he just graduated. He was actually one of the CEOs of one of the classes last year. Oh, cool. So it was great to hear from him. So shout out to Junji.
Shout out. Look, you got a shout out on the best platform in the world, man. So you better tell all your friends to tune in to find your freedom. All right. No, that's awesome, man. And we love to hear those stories, right? That's pretty cool. So we got a question for you, right? What does find your freedom mean to you?
Finding your freedom means the power of choice, the power to choose how you want to spend your time doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Many people are tied down to their jobs because they need it. And they may chase after a promotion or a different job where they make more money. They may take that money to buy a nicer car, a nicer house, and go on a vacation. But when they come back, they still have to work that job to pay their bills. So freedom to me is time and choice.
Oh, that's awesome. So I know you're from Brooklyn in the house.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody wants to connect with you, how do they find you?
Yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram at rt.invest. They can also go to my website, www.rtinvest.com. And, I do give free consultations. I schedule phone calls all the time with people that want to become clients, people that just want to learn, people just want to connect. And for me, I really enjoy connecting with people, learning their stories, learning their whys, figuring out how their mind works, and figuring out how I can help them move forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're coming to an end of the show. And at this point, we do this big boom session. All right. So how it's going to go is I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. And all 3 of us going to say boom and hold it as long as we can. All right, fellas, let me get a head nod that you're ready. All right, listeners, that's your time to turn the radios down because it's about to get loud. All right. So with that being said, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Check this out. We just had another friend to our episode here at Find Your Freedom, and I want you to check him out. He gave you all his handles. Check him out. He is the real deal. And more importantly, he's real. He's transparent. He's going to tell you the rights, the wrongs, and that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you need. So rewind this. Make sure you get those handles. He's active on Instagram and follow him. Give him a follow. Let him know that Omid and Lenny, the boss, told us to. All right. Now, one of the things we need you to do so we can bring more guests on like Ray, we need you to sit here and provide us with an honest 5-star review. All right. And we also need you to share. We need you to share this episode and the platform for all your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your mother, your father, everyone, all your coworkers, the ones that you like and the ones that you don't like. Until the next time, find your freedom. Talk to you soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.